everyone and welcome to my next video. We're looking at drawing perspective. Now the reason why I've decided to do perspective next, we did gesture and then we did the ball, then we did gesture. Now looking at perspective is because I want to show you what I do and how I simplify things, and we're going to actually look at perspective by just learning how to draw very simply a pear, and then I'm going to show you how to paint that pear. And the reason why I wanted to look at simple objects like pears and apples is because they are very they're readily available. You can just grab one off, out of your fridge or at the supermarket. Their colors are so bright, vibrant, and you can get a lot of information out of them. You can learn how to draw, you can learn how to paint very quickly with these simple objects, and then understanding how to do it with these will then inform how you do more complex subjects like faces and landscapes and all that sort of stuff. So let's go and have a look at how to do perspective drawing a little pear. Alright, see you there. Hi everyone and welcome to my next video. In this video we're looking at perspective. I know it sounds like a really boring subject, and sometimes it really is. There are some amazing artists out there who really understand perspective, and if you get a chance, go and check out their videos. I don't know them because I learnt perspective at school, but I just wanted to touch on this subject because I'm going through and having a look at all the different components of drawing and showing you what they do. And so if you remember in the last video we looked at drawing gesture, and remember how we drew the gesture line, and then over the top of that we put particularly when I was drawing the figure, I put the torso on top of that, and I broke the torso down into a very simple geometric shape, and I looked at how the form would bend on itself, and these particular lines, the gesture line, gave me an indication of what the actual form was doing. And as I said, I broke the figure into a very simple form, and that is what artists do. We try and break our objects down into very simple geometric forms, and the simple geometric forms that we generally look at breaking things down to is like a square or a rectangle, or a square, or a circle, or a triangle, and sometimes a cylinder, which is literally just a rectangle with a circle on top. So these are the types of geometric forms that we break things down into, and then we put on top of that the information that we need. So, obviously this here was a rectangle that I then broke down to create these different forms to create the feeling of the torso, and then put other information on top of that, yeah? If that makes sense. So why do we break things down into very simple geometric forms? And the reason is because it makes drawing so much more easy, because if we can see the bigger shapes underneath, then we get a lot of information about that, and that information that we get is basically created from perspective and understanding perspective. So when I was at art school, what we would have to do is we'd have to draw a line, and this would be our horizon line. So a horizon line basically means where your eye line is. Am I looking directly at an object, or am I looking above an object, or am I looking up at an object? Like, is it up above me, or am I looking down below it? And that is going to give me a whole bunch of information about what sections of the 3D form I am seeing. Am I seeing top planes? Am I seeing side planes? Am I seeing front planes? That kind of thing. So say for example, if I'm looking directly at an object, like I'm going to do a square. If I'm looking directly at a square, this is at my horizon line, my point of my vanishing point is right behind it. I'm not going to see any side planes or any top planes because they are all sitting within that box. But if I wanted to see, like I'm actually looking into a box, I then can see that I can draw this, and this here becomes my back plane. I've got a side plane here, side plane. This is a side plane, this is a bottom plane, this is a top plane, and this is another side plane. And suddenly I'm looking into a box as opposed to just looking at a square. So that gives me a whole bunch of information. I've already worked out that I am looking at something that's directly on top of me. The vanishing point is behind me, and I'm not seeing any side planes unless I'm looking into it. Unless it's like I'm looking into a big room, like a cathedral or something like that. That's going to give me a whole bunch of information. However, if my vanishing point sits over here, and I'm still looking directly at this object, I'm going to see more of the side planes because I'm going to draw lines from my box to the side, to this vanishing point, and I'm going to have another side plane here. Now the length of this box is going to be determined by the object that I'm looking at, and it could be narrower or longer, but this is my side plane and I'm seeing that as a side plane. So then if I then was looking into a box, again like an open box, I would be seeing the internal lines as well, and I draw that. And this is the back of the box, as you can see, and this is another side plane, especially if my light source is coming from here. This is a side plane, this is a bottom plane, this is a top plane, which is not going to get any light because it's underneath, and this is a back plane. And all of that information has been given to me based on a very, very simple geometric shape, and I could then put other information on top of that. Like I can't imagine what I would be looking into, but I will go into it and do like another drawing of like a pear or something. So now what happens, I'll draw another line and just down here, and say for example, instead of looking at a box like that, I'm looking down on the box. So say for example, I'm looking at something that's sitting on a table and I'm looking down at it. So therefore it's going to be below my eye line and it's going to sit down here. And again, I'm going to have a vanishing point and I'm going to draw lines to that vanishing point. And then I can draw however long that box is. And now I'm seeing a top plane. This is my top plane here. This is a side plane, and this is a front plane. So again, if I was looking internally into that box, I would then draw the internal lines and I can see into that box. So then if I'm looking above it, sorry, it's above me, so I'm looking up at it. So the box is going to be sitting up here. I'm going to use the same vanishing point and I'm going to draw lines to it. So this is my underplane, so I'm now actually seeing underneath the object, and this here is the top plane here, back plane, side plane, side plane. So it's giving me a whole bunch of information about what that object is doing and where I am sitting in relation to it. So sometimes then you will have something called a 2 points perspective. And in that case, I've got 2 points on my horizon line, so here and here. So on that, I'm going to be looking at another box. So I'm going to draw, say for example, this is the start of my box here. And I'm going to draw lines to those two perspectives, like this and like this. And then I'm going to draw my side plane and my other side plane. And into that I will have a line that goes here. And another line that goes to there. Makes sense. And this gives me a whole bunch of information about this here is this is a plane, side plane here, and I'm looking at it, I can see both sides of it, whereas at this point I'm only seeing one side and I'm seeing two sides. That is 2 point perspective. And then there's another thing called 3 point perspective. And honestly, I don't really want to go into that in this video. I just want you to see that this is what perspective is all about. And how does this relate to drawing different objects? So let's go and have a look at that. All right, so when I was saying before, what we're doing is we are making things into very, very simple geometric shapes. And the reason we do that is because then we can then put other information on top of that that's going to help determine the shape. So say for example, when I first started drawing, what a lot of my teachers got us to do was we had to draw still life objects. And the reason why we draw still life objects is because they are more geometric in shape. So we've got your pears, your apples, your oranges, your vases, your not so much your flowers, because flowers can get very confusing, but cloths and things like that, tabletops, they're all very simple geometric shapes. And so once you can understand how to do geometric shapes in perspective, that then informs you when you go to look at very complex shapes, like say for example trees or figures. You break them down into these simple geometric shapes so that you can then draw the other information on top, but you can get the perspective correct initially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I draw a pear and how I break it down. Now this is by no means the right or correct way or only way to do it, but this is the way that I do it. So I'm looking at this pear, and as you can see, there's a round shape down here and there's another cylindrical shape up here. Now I could draw them as cylinders, or I could draw them as squares, or I can draw them as circles. It doesn't really matter. So if I'm looking at this pear, and this is my horizon line here, and I want to draw it in a cube, like break them down into cubes, I can break the bottom part into a cube like this. And say, for example, this is my vanishing point over here. So the vanishing point, by the way, is determined by what you're looking at, and it could be totally off your paper, and it could be right over here. And I have seen students come up and they have got big pieces of paper so they can get the vanishing point correct. Now the thing that I like to do is I like to eyeball it. I like to work it out and just go, okay, my vanishing point is way over there. I don't necessarily get another piece of paper and put it over here. I just draw those lines, and I'm learning to see with my eyes as opposed to trying to be very, very mechanical in my drawings. Just want to get that out of the way. So the next thing that I will then do is I'm looking, and this is the top of my pear, and I've got another shape here that is the little stalk. So these three squares I've broken my pear down into very, very simple geometric shapes, and then on top of that I can then draw my pear. But before I do that, I will actually decide that, okay, so I'm seeing some of the side planes, so I'm going to put my side vanishing point there. Sorry, words do fail me sometimes. And this is how much I'm seeing of the side plane. Same thing, and this is how much I'm seeing of this side plane here. Now, same thing with my little stalk. And by just doing that, I now have a very, very simple geometric shape, or I've broken it down very simply, and on top of that, I can now put more information. So I now can say, okay, so the top of my pear comes down like this, it comes around, it sort of slides across there. This is my side plane. And I've got and I know that this is my side plane down through here, and this is a side plane down through here. And I have a top plane, but I can't see it because I am looking directly on it. In fact, this here is a top plane, this here is also a top plane, but I can't see that because it is actually, I'm looking straight onto it and I'm not seeing the top plane. However, now if I decide I'm going to move my pear where I'm looking down on it, I then start seeing the top planes of those squares. So I can do the same thing again. I can draw the square. Further down, sorry. Sorry about that. I'm looking right onto it. So this is my the bottom part of my pear, and this is, I'm going to have my vanishing point over here again, and I'm going to have this is, I'm seeing that much of the top plane. I see a bit of that side plane, and then I could do the same thing with the stalk. The stalk I'm seeing less of the top plane because it's at a particular point. But see how this is actually has helped inform me of what's going on, and I can now then come in and go, right, there is that lovely section of my top plane through here. I can see that. This is my side plane. It's coming down and around. This here is a top plane. It doesn't really look like a top plane, but if you draw run your pencil down, it sort of flips out. And so it actually looks like if you could rest something on there. If it was like, say, maybe a little ant, it could sit almost horizontal on the actual pear. Slight slope, so it's not as steep, like it's not as like a top plane like this, it's more of an angled top plane. But that informs me a lot about what's going on, and I will be able to, when I come to draw it as well as paint it, I'm going to know what colours, what tones, what things to put on this section of the pear and this section of the pear. This is my top plane here, and this is my top plane through here. This is the top plane. Does that make sense? I shouldn't be shading that, but that's a top plane. And this is still my side plane, comes into a top plane, and then down to another side plane. And that has given me a whole bunch of information about what is going on within that pear by basically breaking things down into very, very simple geometric shapes and understanding what's going on. So if I then was to put the pear on its side, I can do the same thing. So now the pear is on its side, and I'm going to go, right, this is, I'm again looking down on it, and there's my 1 point perspective, and this is the actual other, the top of it. I can put it in, and then here it's this. And then I can put the actual shape of it on top of that. Very simple geometric areas. And I'm seeing the bottom of it, a very slight section of it. And there's a little thing there. And I can see this is now, this section here is now this section here, as you can see. This now is my top plane, and this is my side plane. And this is my other side plane. So, oh, this is, sorry, not my side, this here is my front plane, and this is my other side plane. But just by understanding that, I have now got a whole bunch of information that's going to help me when I go to paint it and when I go to draw it, because I've broken it down into very simple shapes which I can draw. As I said, some people would prefer to do it as circles, so you know you can do the same thing. This is my horizon line, and I've now got a circle here, and then another, this is more like a cylinder-like object. And by doing that, they're seeing it in this sort of way, and then they can do the same thing, and they can draw everything up over the top of it. And then this here. And so they can know that this here, this is their side plane, this is another side plane. And that they know this, because of the understanding of a circle, is a top plane of the circle and a top plane of the cylinder. I've still got the same information, but I've broken it down into very simple geometric shapes. So as I said, it doesn't have to be necessarily what my square or what I see, like how I break it down. You have to work it out yourself. Simplification is the key. So simplify your things down into very simple geometric shapes, and then put all the information on top of that, because by doing that, you then start to see where we have side planes, top planes, and all that, because that is going to inform you when you go to draw it and as well as paint it. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to exploring this more when I go to paint this little pear. So I hope that was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. See you guys, bye!